and Mountain Dew. The mountain is calling. Welcome in here on your Black Friday. We have a rowdy crowd. We are joining you from the beautiful, the not so warm Madison, Wisconsin. I'm Jacqueline D'Agostino alongside these gentlemen, Richard Johnson, Tom Fornelli. We are here in Madison. I think the wind chill is in like the negatives at this point, but we have a great crowd. We have Minnesota fans. We have Wisconsin fans. Guys, how you feeling? Richard, we're from Florida. Tom, you're like a Midwest guru professional, so this is nothing. You don't even have a hat on, my friend.
No, this is nothing. This is like a warm summer day for me. I'm not bothered by this at all. Neither are any of these people. This is Big Ten football weather. This is why the SEC teams are crying about the rankings, because they don't want to have to come up here to play football games in December. This is what it's all about.
Jacqueline, cold's just a state of mind. These people are keeping me warm.
Yes,
They're pumping me up. We're going to have a heck of a game in Camp Randall this afternoon. I'm excited to be here. Wind chill, not a factor for me. That's a lie.
No, I mean, I don't even have gloves on, so I'm like embracing into the coldness here. How are you guys feeling? Are you cold? They're saying no. They're saying no. But this is why we love college football. And Tom, you mentioned it. This is Big Ten football weather. It is about the rivalries. It is about the pageantry. And here it is all about this axe, which is a 6-foot axe, the Axe Trophy. It was originally the Slab of Bacon Trophy.
I'd rather that, honestly.
You'd rather the Slab of Bacon? Yeah, some warm bacon sounds really nice right now. But yeah, in the 1940s, this Axe Trophy was created. It's got a 6-foot handle there. You can see it. Right now, Minnesota, they're trying to get the axe back. It is currently in possession of Wisconsin. We have some boos that are going on there, but yeah, it's all about the battle for Paul Bunyan's axe. And again, guys, normally it is about getting to a championship or getting to the playoff for most of these programs, but come rivalry week, it is all about taking down your rival, playing spoiler, or getting the axe. And Richard, that's what makes things like this so special.
Jacqueline, I must admit, I am a bowl games don't matter guy for the most part.
I cannot believe you're admitting that.
I'm sorry. But Tom, let me tell you this. A bowl game matters to this Wisconsin.
It does.
22 straight years, they've gone bowling. At the end of the day, I can see right through them. They don't want to be in this weather on New Year's Day. They want to be in Florida. They want to be in Orlando. They want to be in Tampa. And I ain't mad at them, because I'd rather be there too. The bowl game matters, and I think they're going to play like it today, Tom.
Okay.
They're going to leave it all on the field, because not only do they want to beat their blood rival in Minnesota, they want to go bowling.
Yeah, for sure. Both of these teams are desperate to get this win. Minnesota's already locked up its bowl bid. Wisconsin trying to keep the bowl bid alive. But I think more important than any of that, it's just beating the other team, beating your rival, ending the season on a high note. If you're Wisconsin, you need this win. You're trying to keep that bowl streak alive. And you're also just trying to build positive momentum heading into next season, because it's been a rough year, and you would like to have a better taste in your mouth once the season comes to an end, whether it's in Florida or anywhere else warmer than where we are right now. I just think that's the goal here, and also, of course, to look at Minnesota and your friends and your fans and your family who are all Gophers, and just let them know we won this year. The axe is coming home. Yeah,
and for Wisconsin, there is a lot of streaks that are on the line here, certainly, and they're a bad streak, riding a 4-game losing streak, trying to change the narrative. But here's what Luke Fickell had to say about this game in rivalry week. Take a listen.
This is what makes college football the greatest sport out there. And this is what makes college football so interesting, right? Is this in particular week, right? Rivalry week. And I've always said that's why I've loved college football. I've grown up my whole entire life understanding and knowing about rivalries. And so, regardless of what has happened and what happened this past weekend, it's one of those things where, hey, we knew darn well that after Saturday night it was going to be about one thing. It was going to be about the battle for the axe, one of the oldest rivalries in the history of the game. And so coming in here on Sunday for every one of our guys, for every one of these coaches, that's what it was about. And like I said, it wasn't easy. It's not easy to get over the things that happened last week. But this is the best way to be able to do it, is understanding everything's on the line. We've got an opportunity that's in front of us. At the beginning of the year, it was something we talked about. During camp, it was something that we talked about. And then it's here. And, like I said, in a short week, there's a lot of things that we had to kind of do a little bit sooner, a little bit quicker. But like I said, I think it was the best thing that's happened to us, and it's given us a great opportunity to put the past behind us and recognize what is in front of us, and that's most important.
Wanting to put the past behind them. Bad news, Badgers. We mentioned that streak. They've lost 4 games straight for the first time in a long time, since 2008. And they need a win to be bowl eligible. And Richard, you talked about it. 22 straight seasons that they have made a bowl game, looking to make it 23, the 3rd longest active bowl streak in Big Ten history. I think it's only behind Michigan, one of those programs. This is hard to imagine. This is a team that started off 5-2, and then they've rattled off 4 straight wins. Richard, we'll come to you first. What happened, and what are you making of Luke Fickell's comments?
Well, Jacqueline, the first thing that I love about Luke Fickell's comments is they're not treating this like any other game.
Totally.
So how many times, Tom, do we hear these coaches say, it's a week in, week out mentality? And no, man, are you kidding me? It's the battle for the axe.
Coaches speaking.
Treat it like it is, like the importance that it deserves. But I think for Wisconsin, this is such an identity game for them, because this has been an identity season for Wisconsin. They have lost their way. They fired offensive coordinator Phil Longo a couple weeks ago, went into that Nebraska game, huddled every single snap, Tom. None of that no huddle malarkey. Get that out of here. Now, they didn't win the game against Nebraska, but they didn't huddle, but they huddled every snap. So what kind of program does Wisconsin want to be, Tom? We know where they recruit. They don't go down to Florida and recruit these fast guys. They recruit big, tough, strong guys that play to a certain program identity, and they've lost that identity. How do they get it back, and are they even interested in getting it back, or do you think they will continue to pivot into that kind of air raid mentality?
It's interesting. I don't know where Luke Fickell's going to want to go this offseason, but it did feel like coming into the year, even before the Tyler Van Dyke injury in the Alabama game, that there was just a disconnect between him and Longo about what they wanted the offense to look like and how they wanted to operate on Saturdays. And you mentioned after Longo was relieved, they come out, they're huddling every snap. So clearly that was something Luke Fickell wanted to see more of, especially with his backup quarterback in there. But when he took the job, there was a lot made of the quote-unquote dairy raid offense. And Luke Fickell, whenever he was given a chance to talk about it publicly, kind of poo-pooed it a little bit, tried to hold it down and say, well, we're still going to run the ball. We're still going to be Wisconsin. We're just going to have a little more spread kind of principles. And I think that he just felt like Phil Longo wasn't really sticking to his desire of what he wants this team to look like. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think we're not going to go back to the Brett Bielema, Barry Alvarez, giant running backs, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, Wisconsin. But I do think you are going to see more of an emphasis put on running the ball and on defense along the line of scrimmages, because that is what Luke Fickell did at Cincinnati. That's why Luke Fickell has this job.
Yeah.
He built that Cincinnati program into a playoff team along the lines of scrimmage first and built out from there and got skill position players. And I think that's the tactic Fickell's going to take this offseason heading into 2025.
Yeah, I was in Cincinnati covering UC when he was the head coach there. And so success is something that, especially UC fans know this well, he's a great coach. So to be just above 500 in this role as the Badgers head coach, we have to kind of think about the future. And to your point, Richard, you were saying they don't go to Florida to recruit. It's a different kind of recruiting up here. But I also want to talk about recruiting and moving forward with the program, how the Big Ten is with these divisions, or I guess lack thereof. You used to have, the different divisions, and it felt like with this game, it gave them a chance to then get to a Big Ten title. Tom, I'll start with you. Does it make it that much harder now that we don't have that moving forward with recruiting for these programs to recruit? Because now in the age of college football where we're at, it feels like you need flashy money. It needs to be flashy to make these big time recruits. There has to be something like a je ne sais quoi to get these big 5 stars. But is it going to make it harder for a Minnesota or for a Wisconsin to get a CFP appearance, knowing that it's just that much more difficult to get to a Big Ten title game?
I think it is a little more difficult. I mean, regardless of the divisions, which I think was an important thing for the Big Ten West teams, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, Purdue, Iowa, they always had kind of an easier path to get to Indianapolis because of it. But you bring in Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. There's 4 other teams who are now competing with you for that spot. So there's 18 teams in the league. The path is more difficult, but I do think that when you look at both of these programs and you look at the success that they've had in recent years, Minnesota's had some 10-win seasons recently. Wisconsin used to run the West for about a decade. These are both teams that can still compete for the Big Ten. It's just like everybody else, they have to figure out what they need to change in a landscape that seems to change every single single year. There's something new coming into the sport that you have to adopt and adapt to. And I think Luke Fickell, the fact, like, if he was able to do it at Cincinnati, where they were not in a power conference, they were in the American Athletic Conference, they had to go undefeated, they had to prove themselves week in and week out to get to the playoff, and then they still had to be chosen, and they actually were. If he can do that at Cincinnati, I have no doubt he can get Wisconsin to a playoff game. He can get Wisconsin to the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go about it, but it is possible, but it is a lot more difficult to do. But at the same time, it's a lot more difficult for everybody else in the league to do, too.
Hey, Tom, remember, 12-team playoff world, right? You've got a South Carolina, you've got a Clemson. Those teams aren't going to sniff their conference championship games in all likelihood.
Yeah.
But they're still going to find a way, or can find a way, to get in the dance because it's 12 teams. And then again, Tom, as we know, I think in a couple years, there's a decent chance it expands to 14 at least. And when that happens, there will be extra spots for a Big Ten team like Wisconsin to potentially get in with 2, maybe 3 losses.
Most of the Gopher fans that were behind us have since dissipated, but we are going to talk about Minnesota for a moment. PJ Fleck, we're hearing some boos. PJ Fleck, he spoke to the media today about the matchup. Take a listen.
And this is what it's all about. And you wouldn't want to have it any other way, being able to end the season with one of your biggest rivals. And I know our guys will be ready to go, ready to play, and both teams will be really focused. So no matter what happened at the beginning, middle, towards the end of the year, that's all thrown out the window. And now you just got to play your best football for 3 hours against one of your biggest rivals. That's really, really exciting in a holiday week. And this is a really, really, really good 6-5 football team that we have. And they've played a really challenging schedule, and it's really competitive. And, you know, the parity, when you look at it, and you look at like the 5th team in the Big Ten down to maybe the 14th team in the Big Ten, they're all within 1 or 2 wins and losses from each other. And it's all really close. And this is what we talked about, what the new Big Ten is going to look like. Because it goes all the way down to that last game of who separates themselves and maybe 1 loss or 1 win above somebody else. It's crazy.
Man, both these coaches, I love that they're taking this matchup so seriously. Minnesota, as we talked about, they are no strangers to 1-score games this season. 7. They've been in 7 1-score games, and they are 3-4 during that span. We saw them coming off of that loss to Penn State last week by 1 point. But again, it's a rivalry week. We know things get a little wonky. Anything can happen, and we have a Badgers team that is fighting for bowl eligibility. If you are this team and you have been in so many close matchups, Richard, you're just like, oh my gosh, we almost had Penn State, this nationally ranked team last season. How do you go into this? How are you preparing, knowing that there is a feisty Wisconsin team on the other side where we know things can kind of go a little haywire in rivalry games, and there's a ton of streaks that are on the line here?
Well, Jacqueline, first of all, most important factor for PJ Fleck this week, it's his birthday today.
Yes, he's turning 44. Happy birthday, PJ Fleck.
You know he's going to have some extra juice this week in game planning. No better way for him to ring in the birthday than getting the win in the rivalry spot. You know, Wisconsin defensive coordinator Mike Tressel this week joked that he doesn't think Minnesota's going to pass the ball one time because they've got a guy like Darius Taylor. Now, Darius Taylor is one of the leading running backs in catching the ball out of the backfield. Yeah. So he's a dual threat at the running back position. But that's their best option, Tom. Just run the dang ball. I mean, it's Big Ten football, for God's sakes.
Yeah, and that is their identity, pretty much. Like, if you look at the stats, outside of Army, Navy, and Air Force, there isn't a team in the country that runs the ball more often than Minnesota does on offense. And it's part of the reason why they're in all these close games, because it's how they're designed to play. When you play the kind of slow clock management, you know, complementary football that you hear so often, you're going to be in a lot of close games. And I think that that's by design, because if you are Minnesota, while you have talented players, especially in games against teams like Penn State, USC, these other teams filled with 5 and 4 stars, your best chance to win games is to limit the overall amount of possessions, keep it close, and give yourself a chance. And that's what they've been really good at under PJ Fleck's tenure. But this year and last year, they haven't had as much success winning games and finishing them in the fourth quarter, which is why we've seen the win totals drop to 6 last year. They're at 6 this year, trying to get to that 7th win. But I think that when you look at how they want to approach this matchup, Wisconsin, you want to get them in a hole. You don't want them to have to, you know, get the lead and kind of grind you down and put yourself in a position where you have to change. Because with with Max Brosmer at QB, he's been excellent for them, but he's not somebody you want dropping back and throwing 40 times per game.
Yeah, Tom, and both of these teams struggle with drops mightily. Max Brosmer is not a guy who's going to push the ball down the field. He's very efficient. His completion percentage is very high. Tom, what do those things signal to you?
A lot of short passes here.
It signals that you are throwing the ball very short. So if both of these teams get down significantly, I think it's bad news Bears, but I'm very, very concerned about Wisconsin specifically if they get in a hole. Because Wisconsin is just not, but Braden Locke's the backup quarterback. And I know he's played the whole season, but you saw even against Penn State. I mean, Penn State comes in here, and I understand Penn State's a much better team, but Penn State plays the entire game on their backup quarterback, basically running the Wildcat the whole second half because they're not worried about Wisconsin's offense. So both of these offense struggle to come out of a hole and erase a comeback.
Certainly. And we've seen Locke throw an interception. I want to say it's like 8 straight games or something at this point. I'm sorry, when you guys were talking, we had the great green fur fashion right there from the Mountain Dew vibes. Yeah, I was listening to Minnesota, but I mean that's quite the jacket. So I had to take it in. There we go, full screen, full shot there. Yeah, there we go. All right, Tom, Richard, we appreciate it. Obviously, we're gonna hang tight, but we got you covered here leading up to this kick, noon Eastern on CBS. More to come in just a moment, but coming up, more from Madison, Wisconsin. We got to take a look around the Big Ten because we have another big matchup. Maybe you've heard of it with Ohio State and Michigan. We're going to dive into the Big Ten and what that means for the CFP, all those implications coming up on the other side. CBS Sports HQ, presented by Mountain Dew. We are joining you from the very chilly Madison, Wisconsin, ahead of Minnesota-Wisconsin rivalry week. You're getting a look at the players warming up on the field. Some of these guys do not have shirts on. They're absolutely insane. They know about a good rivalry. I know. I am cold looking at it. Ryan Day, he also knows a thing or two about rivalry week. Take a listen.
The minute it hit 000 on that clock, it was on to the team up north, onto the rivalry game. We know what's coming and how important this week is for everybody in the state of Ohio and Buckeye Nation, and most importantly, our team and our obligation to play really well next week and win that game. But we also need to make sure we take a deep breath and recognize the things that happened today. We'll do that tomorrow during our champions meeting, celebrate the guys who played really well, and then move on because, it's easy just to move on, but there's a lot of work that gets put into a win like this, and it's a top 5 win. So we'll get some good rest tonight, make sure we get to bed early, and then we'll wake up tomorrow and make sure we get back to work.
All right, so we know the storylines here, and we know about, Ryan Day in the big moments and him being able to lead an Ohio State team to beat Michigan. It feels like that is always the Achilles heel of Ohio State and that program, but it feels like if there is a year to get them, it will probably be this year. It's no Harbaugh, no McCarthy, but of course, the past 3 meetings, Ryan Day is 0-3 against Michigan, the points per game, all of that. It's been a rough go of it for Ryan Day and trying to finally get over that hump and beating the Michigan Wolverines. Back here on set, Jacqueline D'Agostino, Richard Johnson, Tom Fornelli. We're going to get into the Big Ten, take a look around it, and we can't talk about the Big Ten rivalry without talking about Ohio State and Michigan, where if you live in the state of Ohio, anywhere there is an M that is written on paper or on a sign, it is crossed out with an X on it. But what is your biggest takeaway from what you heard about Ryan Day, and how much pressure, Richard, do you think he is really feeling in this moment? Because the signs are pointing to all things going good for Ohio State. They're projected to be in the CFP there. Michigan is, a double-digit underdog. We got no J.J. McCarthy. It's virtually a completely different team than the national championship team that we saw last year. But how much pressure do you think he's still feeling right now?
Oh, I think the pressure is ratcheted up to 12. I mean, it's
out of 10?
Oh, out of 10, out of 5. I mean, the amount of pressure Ryan Day is facing in this game, you saw it on there. 45-1 against other Big Ten opponents, and they've lost the last 3 years to Michigan. It is a massive deal because not only have they lost to Michigan, but they've been embarrassed by Michigan. They've been beaten, and they've been out physical by Michigan. And you know that guts Ohio State to their core. Tom, I think Michigan better watch out because last week I saw Ryan Day go in the victory formation, and then I saw Will Howard plunge into the end zone to put 7 more points on Indiana. Tom, I think both of us are in accord here that if Ryan Day gets an opportunity to put some extra points on the board here, he's going to make it hurt for Michigan.
Oh, he's going to exercise some demons if he gets the chance. If you look at what has happened for this Ohio State team, everything is going so well for them this year. They've only lost 1 time by a point on the road against Oregon, the #1 team in the nation. They were able to get over that top 5 win, record of Ryan Day's that's been hammered over the head with for years by beating Penn State, by beating Indiana, although I don't know if Ohio State fans are really counting Indiana. But of all the good things that have happened, Will Howard coming in, Chip Kelly taking over the offense, that offense being phenomenal despite losing a whole bunch of people seemingly every single week on the offensive line. One of the best defenses in the country. But if they lose to Michigan, none of it's going to matter.
I was going to say, it doesn't even matter if they finally got over that hump, if you will, when it comes to Penn State or Indiana, whether the fans are counting it as not. It doesn't matter, in your opinion, if they lose to Michigan.
No, I think if you're an Ohio State fan, obviously you want to win the Big Ten. You want to get to the playoff. You want to win the national title. But when these teams start their season, they list 3 goals. And the Big Ten title's one and the national title's one. But the first goal is always to beat the other one. At the top of Ohio State's list is beat Michigan, especially when you have lost lost 3 in a row to them. And last year you had to watch the Wolverines go on and win a national championship while you weren't able to get to the playoffs. So I do think there is a ton of pressure on Ryan Day. I think there's a ton of pressure on a lot of players on that team who have been there for a few years and have yet to get that win over the Wolverines. They want those gold pants. They need them.
Keep in mind, Ohio State also hasn't clinched a berth in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
So I think there are people who, if you think Ohio State's ever going to overlook Michigan, please. But if you wanted to go down that road, I could, all right. But I don't see that for the second reasoning, which is not only is it Michigan, but Ohio State's got a Big Ten championship to play for because they've got a 1-point loss to avenge against Oregon. So if you can have any more meaning in the game, they have it this year because of that.
Yeah, and to your point, it's not a lock in terms of the Big Ten championship for Ohio State. There are still different pathways, albeit some more things need to happen for an Indiana or Penn State to potentially get there. But let's talk about their CFP implications and everything, because Indiana, for a long time, we were talking about if they beat Ohio State, if they don't. We all saw what happened there. But Richard, in terms of Indiana and Penn State, how do you think it all plays out for them in terms of the Big Ten title and then beyond that?
Well, I think Penn State, now that they survived the scare last week against Minnesota, they are sitting pretty to host a home playoff game in Happy Valley, which is going to be massive for them. You do not want to go into Happy Valley a couple days before Christmas for all the reasons you might not want to go to Camp Randall the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But besides that, I think Indiana, I had serious questions about Indiana's playoff chances if they didn't show well in the game last week against Ohio State. Now, they didn't really show well, but the thing that I personally didn't factor in was the SEC bloodbath that was also going to occur, that was going to let Indiana just settle there at the 10th ranking 11th seed. And as the playoff is projected based on Tuesday rankings, they would play Penn State in a Big Ten, I don't know what we call it, in the first round. We'll see what happens after the rankings shake out over the next 2 weeks. But for now, that's what it looks like. But yes, Indiana is sitting at least close enough to get into the playoff because of all the carnage that happened around the top.
Yeah, the Hoosiers had a rough morning last week, losing to Ohio State, getting beat up pretty well. But then they were able to go home, and like you said, they were able to watch Ole Miss lose. They were able to watch Alabama lose. And those losses really did kind of save them, because there was a decent and a worthy question of what the committee was going to do with the Hoosiers based on their overall lack of impressive wins because of their schedule, and then losing by 3 scores to Ohio State. We saw they dropped 5 places. Could have been a lot more if Alabama and Ole Miss had won. They could be on the outside looking in. And the fact is, there's still a chance, depending on what happens in other games around the country, that they could get left out. I don't think that will be the case as long as they beat Purdue today, but I do think that the question still remains, and with Penn State, I think it's very simple. Beat Maryland, you're in.
Yeah, really quickly, before we wrap up, just really quickly here. As of right now, I believe there's 4 Big Ten teams that are projected to make it in the CFP. When it's all said and done, how many do you think get in there, Richard?
I think if everybody can hold serve and Ohio State plays Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, I think all 4 get in, Tom.
Yeah, I agree. I think if Ohio State beats Michigan, it's going to be all 4. So I think in a weird way, if you're Indiana and Penn State, you're kind of rooting for Ohio State to win.
Ooh, that's weird. Don't let him hear you say that, Tom. All right, we have more to come from Madison, Wisconsin. We have an amazing crowd that's behind us here. They're pumped. They're loud. They're bearing the cold and the wind. We're going to talk about more, cheese curds, some Wisconsin delicacies here, and we're also going to talk about the quarterback matchup, players to watch for Minnesota and Wisconsin. More to come here from Madison, Wisconsin, coming your way on the other side right here on HQ.
for that morning reset. We started in college football with North Carolina. They have reached out to Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith about their head coach vacancy after firing Mac Brown last week. Smith played for the Tar Heels, if you remember, before embarking on his coaching career. The former Falcons head coach says he had a preliminary conversation, but added that he's happy in Pittsburgh. The Steelers are 8-3 as they head into Sunday's game against the Bengals. Well, the hot seat got a bit hotter when it comes to Chicago's head coach Matt Eberflus. The Bears had a chance in the final moments against the Lions, but the time ran out thanks to some questionable clock management. This play right here exactly, with a 23-20 loss to the Lions that had led to plenty of calls to fire Eberflus. He met with reporters this morning and says he's getting ready for next week's game against the Niners. Elsewhere, the Dallas Cowboys rolled to a 27-20 win over the Giants yesterday. It marks the Cowboys' first home win of the season. They're now 5-7. Rico O'Donnell had 100 yards. And first one of his career, by the way, 112 yards in the entire game, plus that one touchdown. The Cowboys would now get some time to rest. Their next game, the Bengals, on Monday Night Football. And the Green Bay Packers capped off a night with a 30-17 win over the Miami Dolphins at a frigid Lambeau Field. It marked Miami's 11th straight loss in temperatures below 40 degrees. Jordan Love led the way for the Packers, connecting with Jaden Reed and a pair of touchdown passes to his other targets out there. Taking a look at that NFC playoff picture, yes, the Packers have 9 wins, but when you got an NFC North and 2 other teams that have 9 wins, you're in that wild card spot. You see they're holding on to that number 6 right above them. The Vikings 9-2, and of course the Lions, who've just been running through everybody at 11-1, but others still in the hunt. You see it there, packed field with the Cardinals, Bucks, Rams, and everybody else that's trying to get into a postseason.
College football is about rivalries, and this is the longest 10 years of football rivalry in the entire country. There's not any others that are like the Minnesota game.
Take advantage of this. It's a beautiful day for a great day. The tougher, more nastier team will win the game today. The guy that's willing to put their hairline below his chin, elbows tight, and difference a guy for 60 minutes is the team that's going to win. Work the decision maker all night long. Impose our will and put our footprint on this damn thing.
And pouncing on it is Wisconsin. It's belted by Corcoran. Darrell Peterson wraps him up. Jake Chaney bursting into the backfield. Back to throw. 3 yards deep in the end zone. Callie Agnan is throwing, and it's intercepted by Ricardo Hallman, who rolls to the turf.
All right, just want to thank Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin, for providing that montage where if you're not ready to run through a brick wall after listening to that and get the axe back, I don't really know what will pump you up more. Just look at our fans that are hanging out. They got some cold beers, even though it's like 5 degrees here. They've been troopers. They've been great all show long. Fellas, we're going to get into this matchup. Players to watch in keys, of course, starting with the quarterbacks. Max Brosmer, Braden Locke. I'll start with you, Richard. Which quarterback do you think is going to have the most impact on this game today?
Give me Brosmer just because I think he's a better player, but neither of these quarterbacks and neither of these offenses are built to play from behind. Braden Locke has had a serious turnover issue this season. He's had real problems putting the ball in dangerous situations. He's the backup, but he's played basically the whole season. So eventually, does he grow into the role? And understand also that Wisconsin's sort of transitioning out of whatever dairy raid offense they had. Now they're huddling every snap like they did against Nebraska. It didn't really work. They still got beat, but they are changing things up. So they are in an offensive transition. We know that Brosmer's not really going to push the ball down the field with Minnesota, but I do think he's just the better, more finished product because he's going to be safer with the ball, Tom.
Yeah, when Brosmer was playing at New Hampshire, he wasn't exactly a household name, but there were a lot of other programs interested in him in the transfer portal. They liked what they saw from his time there, and P.J. Fleck was able to get him, bring him in to replace Athan Calais-Madison. He is giving them pretty much everything you could have asked for from him. He's efficient, he doesn't make mistakes, and he keeps the offense on schedule, moves it down the field to get points, and he hands off very well when required to. As far as Braden Locke, I think it was very much a baptism by fire for him because Tyler Van Dyke goes down in the Alabama game. So go on out there, Braden. Go play Alabama. Have fun. You weren't supposed to be out.
Easy enough, right?
And then the next week you're on the road at USC, and we have seen he's had ups and downs, ups and downs. There was a nice 3-game stretch, then he's had a rough time, but we saw last week, you mentioned all the huddling that they were doing in Nebraska. It might have been Braden Locke's best game. He threw for 290 yards, 3 touchdowns. The yards per attempt were over 9. It was his highest of the season in any game so far. So maybe they're kind of starting to tap into something with Locke and their receivers and the offense and what they want to do, and we can see some success. Although in these conditions, it's not just cold, it's windy, and we have seen it's hard to throw the ball in windy conditions like this. So we'll see what kind of impact that has on the game.
And we've been bringing up the huddle, and yes, it's kind of funny, but like with the helmet communication that the quarterbacks now have, just being able to communicate to everybody in the huddle, and it slows the offense down. We're not doing the no huddle. We're not running, going 100 miles an hour. Everybody can get set. We can communicate the play call, and we control the tempo of the game, which we want to do anyway, because we're not going to go out there and score 50 points.
Right. Yeah, we know it's windy. We saw papers flying on this set here. Let's get to the offense in general. Receivers, running backs, rapid fire here. Who's going to be the keys for you?
Tom, outside of Tawee Walker, like, what does Wisconsin have as a threat on offense? I mean,
I know one guy.
Give it to me.
As an Italian, how can I not admire the wide receiver, Vinny Anthony? Or as I like to say, Vinny Anthony. He's been getting wide open down the field. He has been their big play threat in the passing game. He's really been the only one they have. He's been able to get deep in one-on-one situations. I can guarantee you Wisconsin is going to try to manufacture ways to get him in those spots, to get those big plays down the field, because it's so hard for them to put together those 10, 11-play drives without making a mistake or getting a penalty that puts them behind schedule. So they need those big plays. He has been the source for him. That's where I would look for if I'm Wisconsin.
And on Minnesota's side, Darius Taylor. I mean, obviously, Darius Taylor, not only is he a very productive running back, you know, in the age of Ashton JT, you know, it feels like we forget about all the other running backs in college football, but Darius Taylor's a great back, and he's also third in the country in running back catches out of the backfield. He can do it all for this Minnesota offense, and I think you understand that he has to in many ways.
All right, let's look at the coaching matchup, because it's actually familiar foes that are going to be on opposite sides of the sideline. Their ties go all the way back to 2006 with Fleck and Fickell here. If it comes down to the wire, we talked about being in close games, one-score games, all of that. Tom, who do you have more trust in?
They're both excellent coaches. They go about it in completely different ways. They have completely different personalities. They've built programs in the past that are very similar to one another. Based on what I have seen this year, I would give Fleck the edge just because he has his starting quarterback. And a lot of times that's what it comes down to. So if you're Luke Fickell and it's a close game and you're down to your backup, even if he's been in there for most of the season, he has not been the guy that was supposed to be there. I'd give Minnesota the slightest edge there.
Okay.
I give Minnesota the slight edge just like Tom does, but I think I also base it off of last week. Last week, they had Penn State on the ropes, and they let Penn State hold the ball at the end of that game with numerous fourth down conversions, faked a punt in their own territory. That has got to be absolutely gutting to the Gophers this week, and you got to think that they worked on and are drilling high leverage plays in this game, and so I think they'll be ready for a close game if it happens in this game.
All right, let's get to some of the fun stuff, because at Camp Randall Stadium, we know it's going to be rocking after the third quarter. They like to do jump around. Do you think we're going to see the fans jump around and go absolutely wild? I feel like it might be more out of necessity, gentlemen, at this point, to keep everybody warm.
I can't jump because this chair is going to fall off the stage.
Yeah, we don't want that. We don't want that. But Tom, this is, again, why we love college football. I'm saying this, and there's a chilling wind breezing over the set with snow.
And part of the problem there, Jacqueline, is that ain't Wisconsin players jumping around.
It's not.
That's Oregon players jumping around.
They're mocking them. Are we going to see Minnesota players jumping around and mocking them, or do you think it's going to be, good old family fun in the third quarter with Wisconsin?
Oh, I think you'll see everybody jumping around. Everybody enjoys it. It's meant for Wisconsin, but we've seen more teams take part in it in the last few years. And I don't know if you guys have ever been in the press box in this stadium for it when it happens.
I haven't.
The press box shakes with the stadium.
Oh my God.
All right, I'll be
it's a little scary the first time, but it's also fun. Although nobody jumps in the press box because we're all professionals.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. All right. And this one is kind of a nod to Richard and I's alma mater, but we wanted to talk about a better song. Is it Jump Around, or is it Won't Back Down? What do you think's more iconic?
Well, you're talking to my heartstrings there.
I know.
With Won't Back Down. As a fellow Gainesville native, just like Tom Petty, I got to give the slight edge to Won't Back Down. The vibes with the phone light. I can't pull my phone out, but if you got the phone light, if you're at the swamp at night and you're putting the phones up and you get that scene,
Richard,
it is incredible.
There it is.
Nobody's jumping jumping, but it's a great scene. You put your arm around your neighbor in the stadium there, and you have a great time there between the third and fourth quarter.
Tom, give us an unbiased opinion.
I mean, I think if we're just talking about best songs, I won't back down as the better song. A better hype song? Come on, Jump Around is a far better hype song than I Won't Back Down. It's designed to be a hype song to get you jumping around. It's literally the words in the song. So Jump Around is far and away the better hype song of the two.
Okay, it's their hype song, but like when it comes to like chills, I feel like Tom Petty just hits differently. But again, I went to Florida with Richard. We went to college together, so yeah, I'm obviously very biased. We're having a great time here in Madison, Wisconsin, ahead of Minnesota, Wisconsin. Noon kickoff on CBS. We're sticking around. More to come on the other side. We're going to talk about the Heisman race, a lot more. We're going national. We're talking about big picture. More to come from Madison, Wisconsin. On the other side, we got to talk about Shador, Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty. Who is going to be the front runner after rivalry week? Will we see a change? That is coming up on the other side here on HQ. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Mountain Dew. We are here in Madison, Wisconsin, getting ready, ever so close to game time for Minnesota, Wisconsin. We have a Badger hat inside of the stadium right now. If that doesn't keep you warm, I don't know what does. Here's Tiffany Blacken from inside of Camp Randall Stadium.
Here at Camp Here at Camp Randall Stadium, Minnesota and Wisconsin will meet for the 134th time. It is the most played rivalry in all of college football, and it will kick off to the tune of around 20 degrees. But despite the temperatures, this is always a heated matchup, and there's a lot at stake today for Luke Fickell and his Badgers. If they win, they will make a bowl game and do so for the 23rd consecutive time. Fickell told us that this matchup is their Super Bowl. Now, it is just their second game since firing offensive coordinator Phil Longo. So tight ends coach Nate Letton, he will be the play caller. Something to keep an eye on in this one is their offensive line and how well they protect quarterback Braden Locke. They've had the same unit as starters the entire season and have allowed just 11 sacks. Also offensively, we're keeping an eye on receiver Will Pauling. He was injured, missed last week. He's questionable for this game. On defense, they will get back safety Hunter Wohler. He is their leading tackler. And for Wohler in this defense, they are going to be challenged facing Minnesota quarterback Max Brosmer. He's got a quick release, and he's averaging just over 220 passing yards a game. And something that offensive coordinator Greg Harbaugh really likes about him is his ability to process things quickly. Harbaugh said it gives them a lot of versatility in their offense. So look for them to try to get their playmakers going early, and running back Darius Taylor and receiver Daniel Jackson as they try to win this battle of Paul Bunyan's axe in this Black Friday matchup.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. She is inside of the stadium. Stay warm. We're trying to stay warm outside of Camp Randall Stadium. We have an awesome crowd here. They're dancing to Dancing Queen, a little ABBA in the background. And we're feeling good because we're finally going to try some cheese curds on air. I have never had them.
This is the only reason I came.
This is the only reason you came. Okay, Tom is familiar, and I was asking you, like, do we need dipping sauce? And you're like, no, I have to have it in its purest form.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
yes.
All right, here we go. My hands are freezing.
Yeah.
Give it a curd rating, 1 to 10.
It's fried cheese, so the floor is very high. I'm gonna go 7.5, just based on temperature, and that's nobody's fault. It's in the elements.
It's really cold, yeah.
As soon as you put it outside, it's gonna freeze.
No problem.
This is warming my heart. It's warming my stomach and my body. I give it an 8.5.
Okay, I've never had a cheese curd, but that is fire.
Yeah.
Fire flames. That's really good. I'll say 9, just on vibes. Do you guys like cheese curds? Yeah. Love. Okay, we got a lot of cheese curd fans back here. Let's talk about this on a national scale. Feel free to dive into your cheese curds as we talk about the Heisman race.
I might just eat for the rest of the second.
Okay, perfect. We're going to talk about some of the favorites. Of course, there's Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty. Those are the big ones. Shadur Sanders is also in the mix. But who needs a better showing in their rivalry week to stay at the top of that conversation? Tom, I'll start with you.
I think it's very simple for both of them. Like, Ashton Genty, to me, at this point, is having an incredible season. He's chasing Barry Sanders' record. His best path to get to the Heisman is to win the Mountain West and get Boise State into the college football playoff. If that happens, he has a legitimate chance. Problem is, I don't think he has a great chance unless something drastic happens with Travis Hunter, because as good as Ashton Genty has been, he's chasing something that's been done before. Travis Hunter is a unicorn. We haven't seen it before. Now, with Colorado losing last week, their playoff hopes are pretty much dead. I don't know, that probably hurts him, but I still think that he has the name value, the superstar value, the unicorn of being a great wide receiver, a great cornerback, one of the best players in the country on both sides of the ball. I think it's going to be hard for him to lose the award at this point, but you never know.
Yeah, I think that Travis Hunter has the very unique Heisman case of being a Heisman favorite whose Heisman candidacy is not necessarily attached to how good his team is playing.
Which is rare.
It's very rare, and it's because he's not a quarterback.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter is just, it's a revelation. The adjectives, you run out of them for what he's doing because it is so incredible. Just the raw snap count alone is enough to just make your eyes pop. But then you think about what he's doing, how well he's playing as a receiver and a DB, and you're just like, he does it at altitude half the time. He is just just such a rare athlete, and he's just outstanding. And again, the award is for the most outstanding player in college football. That's what it says at the bottom of the trophy. And for me, Jacqueline, that's Hunter.
Yeah, and this season has been unique in the sense where we're talking about a running back, wide receiver / corner at the top, and not necessarily a quarterback. We're going to enjoy some cheese curds in the break. We're going to hit a break here. But also, we can touch Tom on the Cover 3 podcast. I was listening again, trying to see if Tom was going to come in gloves, a T-shirt.
Richard's wearing my gloves right now.
Yeah, I'm not wearing gloves either, which is silly. But yeah, we're going to chow down on some cheese curds in the time being. Make sure you check out the Cover 3 podcast. You can download, follow, listen wherever you get those pods, or you can watch right now and scan that QR code. CBS Sports HQ presented by Mountain Dew. It is the Battle of the Axe, and it is all going down on CBS. Minnesota, Wisconsin, 12 Eastern, also streaming on Paramount Plus. We're going to get some picks for this matchup. Jacqueline D'Agostino, Richard Johnson, and Tom Fornelli. Guys, let's talk about it. Who wins? We have like 90 seconds, so rapid fire answer. Who do you think wins? Richard, I'll start with you.
Quick one, I'm going to go Minnesota.
Minnesota.
I'm going to go Minnesota. I think they're the better team. I think they're better equipped to battle it out with Wisconsin. I'm taking the Gophers.
I'm going to go with Wisconsin. I think that they need this game more. Okay. I think there's the motivation. Obviously, both teams want to win, but I didn't come to Madison to pick the Gophers to win this game. I came to Madison to take the Badgers. I think they get this win. They go both.
I'll go spicy along with you, Tom. I'll say Wisconsin. There's a lot of streak weeks on the line. They want to get 23 straight seasons making a bowl game. Maybe they've convinced me with their cheese curds. I don't know. I'm just like in the environment, and they're persuading me.
Oh, boy.
I'm gonna go with Wisconsin as well. So obviously you think Minnesota's going to cover.
Wisconsin to cover, but take the over. There's going to be more points in this game than you realize.
It's 40 and a hook, so it's very low, but Tom doesn't care. He's taking the over. All right, Richard, Tom, it's been a blast. We appreciate it. Our crew, everyone in the background, the fan, we love it. We love cheese curds. We had a great time. Thank you, gentlemen. And again, Minnesota, Wisconsin on CBS, noon Eastern. We'll see you there.
Welcome into a fresh new hour of CBS Sports HQ, brought to you by the Capital One Spark Cash Plus card. What could unlimited 2% cash back do for your business? What's in your wallet? I'm Jordan Giorgio. That is Brandon Baylor. We hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. The tryptophan is still in the system. Woke up a little sleepy. Noon show.
Yeah, this is unusual for me when it comes to being up this time of day, but it's okay. It's all right. You know, everybody had their turkey Thanksgiving feast.
Do you have leftovers yet?
No, but they're waiting. They're waiting once I leave. You know, they're waiting there. Some people had second and thirds on those plates. Of course, we had football